The promise Aaron made to Tara Johnson under the Parisian sunset was supposed to hold them, not shatter her heart into 1,000 pieces on his penthouse floor. "You're marrying her?" Her voice cracked on the last word, disbelief and devastation warring in her chest. "Aaron, you promised me. You said I was your forever." Aaron Wellington stood across the penthouse, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle twitching beneath his perfectly sculpted face. Those steel-blue eyes that once looked at her with infinite tenderness now held something she'd never seen before. Something cold, distant, almost cruel. "Things changed, Tara." His voice was flat, emotionless, so unlike the man who'd whispered poetry against her skin just nights ago. "What we had, it was fun, but Vivian is more suitable for my position. You have to understand, this is business." Business, the word felt like a slap. Tara's hands trembled as she pressed them against her chest, trying to hold herself together. Her brown skin looked luminous even in her anguish, tears creating trails down her high cheekbones. She'd worn the emerald dress he loved tonight, had come to surprise him with news that would change everything. "But now, you told me you loved me," she whispered, taking a step forward. 3 weeks ago, Aaron. You got down on one knee in front of the Eiffel Tower and you promised me. I said things change." His shout echoed through the cavernous space, and for just a fraction of a second, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Pain? Regret? But it vanished so quickly she wondered if she'd imagined it. He turned away from her, his broad shoulders rigid beneath his custom suit. "The engagement announcement goes public tomorrow. I think it's best if you're not around." Tara felt her knees weaken. This couldn't be real. This had to be some nightmare. The man who'd traced the curve of her spine and called her his queen, his everything, his reason for breathing, that man wouldn't do this. That man wouldn't look at her like she was nothing. "So that's it?" Her voice was barely audible now. "Everything we built, everything we planned, you're just throwing it away, throwing me away?" Aaron's hand gripped the edge of his desk until his knuckles went white, but he didn't turn around. "Leave, Tara, please." That last word, please, came out strangled, desperate, so at odds with everything else he'd said. But Tara was too shattered to notice, too broken to see the way his shoulders shook or hear the hitch in his breath. She picked up her clutch with shaking hands, her engagement ring, his ring, the one he'd slipped onto her finger with tears, in his eyes, suddenly feeling like a shackle. She twisted it off and set it on the glass coffee table with a soft clink that sounded like a death knell. "I hope she's worth it," Tara said, her voice hollow. "I hope she's worth destroying the best thing that ever happened to you." She walked toward the elevator, each step feeling like she was wading through concrete. She pressed the button and waited, praying he would stop her, call her name, tell her this was all some horrible misunderstanding. The elevator arrived with a cheerful ding that felt obscene. Aaron never turned around. As the doors slid closed, sealing her away from the only man she'd ever truly loved, Tara finally let the sobs come. She didn't see Aaron collapse against his desk the moment she was gone, didn't hear his anguished cry, didn't know about the photos spread across his desk. Photos of her, surveillance shots taken from every angle, with crosshairs drawn over her beautiful face and a simple message typed across the bottom. "Call off the engagement, or she dies." She didn't know that loving her had put her in danger. She didn't know that the only way Aaron Wellington could protect Tara Johnson was to break her heart. She didn't know that some promises, no matter how sacred, no matter how soul-deep, had to be broken to keep the person you love alive. All she knew was pain. Before we dive deeper into Aaron and Tara's journey, welcome back to our channel, Beautiful Souls. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our heart-wrenching love stories. We want to give a special shout-out to our amazing loyal viewers, Sandra Hooper from South America, Shirley Williams from Arkansas, and Florence Legister from Jamaica. Thank you for always being here with us. We see you and we appreciate you. Keep engaging with our stories, dropping those comments and sharing your thoughts. Who knows? You may earn a shout-out in our next story if you stay active and connected with our community. Now let's go back 3 months to where it all began. "You're blocking my sun." Tara didn't look up from her book, but she could feel the presence looming over her beach chair. Tall, confident, probably used to women falling at his feet. Well, she wasn't about to be one of them. She'd come to St. Lucia to escape drama, not invite more of it. My apologies. The voice was deep, smooth as aged whiskey with just a hint of amusement. Though I should mention, you're sitting in front of my villa. That made her look up. And oh. The man standing before her, silhouetted against the Caribbean sun, was possibly the most handsome human being she'd ever seen. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair slightly tousled by the ocean breeze, a strong jaw, and eyes so blue they rivaled the water behind him. He wore simple linen pants and an unbuttoned white shirt that revealed a chest sculpted by what had to be a very expensive personal trainer. Tara raised an eyebrow, refusing to be intimidated by either his looks or his apparent wealth. Your villa has about 200 feet of private beach. I'm sure you can find somewhere else to stand. His lips curved into a smile that did absolutely unfair things to his already unfair face. I could, but then I wouldn't get to find out what's so fascinating in that book that you'd ignore a perfect stranger trying to strike up a conversation. Maybe that's precisely why I'm reading. She marked her page and gave him her full attention, determined not to be just another woman dazzled by his charm. Did you consider that I might be here to avoid conversation? Ouch. He pressed a hand to his chest in mock injury, but his eyes sparkled with genuine delight. I'm Aaron, by the way, Aaron Wellington. He said the name like it should mean something. It probably did. Billionaires usually made sure everyone knew who they were. But Tara had spent the last month deliberately avoiding news, social media, and anything else that reminded her of her ex and his very public new relationship. Tara, she offered, but didn't extend her hand. And I'm still reading Aaron Wellington. What would it take to earn 5 minutes of your time? She pretended to consider, even though something about his genuine smile, not the practiced charm, but the real warmth, underneath was already melting her defenses. An excellent reason why I should care about anything you have to say. Aaron sat down in the sand beside her chair, seemingly unconcerned about his expensive linen pants. The move surprised her. Most men like him expected her to accommodate them, not the other way around. I could tell you about my portfolio or my companies, he said, drawing patterns in the sand. I could name drop or try to impress you with expensive things, but honestly, I just watched you refuse to be impressed by any of that, and it's the most refreshing thing I've experienced in years. He looked up at her, and this time there was something vulnerable in those blue eyes. So here's my reason. I'm tired of people who only see my last name, and you seem like someone who sees the person instead. Tara felt her carefully constructed walls crack just a little. There was something raw in his honesty, something that resonated with her own exhaustion at being seen as a trophy or a stepping stone, rather than a complete person. 5 minutes, she conceded, closing her book. But I'm timing you. Aaron's answering grin was brilliant, boyish, completely genuine. He ended up staying for 3 hours. They talked about everything and nothing, her work as a hospital administrator, his frustration with corporate politics, their shared love of old jazz and terrible reality TV, the way they'd both rather have tacos than caviar. Aaron made her laugh until her sides hurt with his impression of a stuffy board member. Tara challenged every assumption he made, refusing to let him coast on charm alone. When the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Aaron stood and offered his hand. Have dinner with me, he said. Not a command, but a question. Please. I promise the food at my villa is exceptional, and the conversation will be even better. Tara looked at his outstretched hand, at the hope in his eyes, at this man who'd somehow slipped past every defense she'd built. One dinner, she said, placing her hand in his. But I'm keeping my room key in my pocket, and if you turn out to be a serial killer, I'm very good at self-defense. Aaron's laugh rang out across the beach, pure and unguarded. Noted. Though for the record, I'm much more dangerous with spreadsheets than weapons. That dinner turned into a midnight walk on the beach. The walk turned into breakfast the next morning, prepared by his chef while they watched the sunrise from his terrace. Breakfast turned into a day exploring the island together, Aaron insisting on driving a beat-up rental Jeep instead of his usual luxury vehicle because Tara said she wanted an adventure. By the third day, they'd shared their first kiss, tender and searching, on a hidden beach Aaron knew about, with the waves crashing around them and his hands cradling her face like she was something precious. I don't do this, Aaron had whispered against her lips. Fall this fast, feel this much. Neither do I, Tara had admitted, her fingers tangled in his hair. It terrifies me. Good. He'd kissed her again, deeper this time. I'd be worried if I was the only one scared. By the end of the week, Tara had missed her flight home. By the end of 2 weeks, Aaron had extended his stay indefinitely. By the end of the month, they both knew that what had started as a vacation fling had transformed into something far more profound. "Come back with me," Aaron had said on their last night in St. Lucia, lying tangled together in his villa's master suite, the ocean breeze cooling their heated skin. "To New York. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy, but Tara..." He'd propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her with such intensity it stole her breath. "I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. These past weeks, you've reminded me what it feels like to be seen, to be real, to be happy." Tara had traced the line of his jaw, her heart both soaring and terrified. "I have a life in Chicago. A job, an apartment, friends. I know." He'd caught her hand and pressed it to his chest, letting her feel his racing heartbeat. "And I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm asking you to add to it, add me. Add us, we'll figure out the logistics. I have a plane, you have vacation days, we'll make it work." His voice had dropped to a whisper. "Just say you'll try. Say this doesn't end when we leave paradise." She'd pulled him down for a kiss that answered better than words ever could. The next 3 months were a whirlwind romance that belonged in movies, not real life. Aaron flew to Chicago every weekend, sometimes just for a day, once even for a single evening, because Tara had mentioned missing him. He'd show up at her hospital with coffee and croissants, charming her colleagues while making it clear his attention was only for her. He'd cook dinner in her modest apartment, insisting he preferred it to any 5-star restaurant because it felt like home. Tara spent long weekends in New York, staying in Aaron's penthouse, but also exploring the city together like tourists. He'd take her to tiny jazz clubs in Brooklyn where no one recognized him, to late-night diners where the coffee was terrible but the pie was perfect. He'd hold her hand in Central Park and tell her stories about his childhood, about the pressure of expectations, about feeling like he was drowning in his own success until he'd met her. "You make me feel like I can breathe," he'd told her once on a rooftop at midnight with the city spread out beneath them. "Like there's more to life than board meetings and bottom lines." "You make me feel seen," she'd replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "Not just as a woman or a professional, but as all of me. The messy parts, the ambitious parts, the parts that love bad karaoke and cry at sappy commercials. They fit. Despite the differences in their worlds, despite the complexities of their lives, they fit." Aaron introduced her to his mother, a warm, elegant woman who'd hugged Tara tight and whispered, "Thank you for bringing my son back to himself." He brought her to galas and charity events, always keeping her close, always making sure she was comfortable, never letting anyone treat her as anything less than his equal. Tara introduced him to her family, her father, who grilled Aaron like he was back in interrogation mode from his police days, and her mother, who'd pulled Tara aside and said, "Baby, that man looks at you like you hung the moon in stars. Don't let him go." 3 months felt like 3 years, like 3 lifetimes. They knew each other's coffee orders and deepest fears, childhood dreams and adult insecurities. They finished each other's sentences and communicated with just a look. They fought sometimes, passionate arguments about everything from politics to whose turn it was to choose the movie. But they always talked it through, and then came Paris. Aaron had surprised her with a trip, saying he had business in France and wanted her with him. They'd spent their days exploring the city, the Louvre, Notre Dame, tiny patisseries in the Marais. They'd drunk wine by the Seine and stolen kisses in hidden courtyards. On their last evening, Aaron had taken her to the Eiffel Tower at sunset. They'd ridden to the top platform, and as the sun painted the sky in impossible colors, as the city of lights began to glow beneath them, Aaron had taken both her hands in his. "Tara Johnson," he'd said, his voice shaking with emotion. "3 months ago, you were blocking my sun. Today, you are my sun, my moon, my entire universe." He'd dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring that caught the fading light, an emerald surrounded by diamonds, chosen because he remembered her saying emeralds were her favorite. "I know we haven't known each other long by traditional standards, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Marry me, build a life with me. Let me spend every day for the rest of my life earning the gift of your love. Tara had been crying before he'd finished, had pulled him up and kissed him with her whole heart before gasping out, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They'd made love that night with a desperate tenderness, whispering promises against each other's skin. Forever they'd sworn, always, nothing would tear them apart. Tara had fallen asleep with her head on his chest, her engagement ring catching the moonlight, certain she'd found her fairy tale ending. She'd had no idea the nightmare was about to begin. The first sign had been subtle. Aaron had seemed distracted on the flight home, his jaw tight, his responses clipped. When she'd asked if something was wrong, he'd kissed her forehead and blamed jet lag. The second sign had been clearer. He'd canceled their dinner plans 2 nights in a row, citing emergency meetings. His texts became shorter, less frequent. When they did see each other, there was a tension in him she'd never felt before. By the end of the second week back from Paris, Aaron had stopped saying "I love you" without prompting. By the end of the third week, Tara had seen the announcement about the Wellington-Ashford merger, a business alliance that would create one of the largest financial empires in the country. And standing next to Aaron in the press photos was Vivian Ashford, blonde and beautiful and sophisticated in a way that made Tara's stomach turn. The article mentioned close personal ties and a partnership that goes beyond business. Tara had called Aaron immediately. He'd ignored it. She'd called again and again. Finally, he'd texted, "We need to talk. Come to the penthouse tonight." And that's where her world had ended, in a shower of broken glass and broken promises, with the man she loved telling her she'd been nothing but a fun distraction. Now, riding the elevator down from Aaron's penthouse with mascara-stained cheeks and a shattered heart, Tara pressed her hand to her stomach, to the secret she'd come to share with him tonight, the secret that would now remain hers alone. She was carrying Aaron Wellington's child, and he would never know. Aaron stared at the computer screen, the words blurring together. Another contract, another merger, another meaningless achievement in a life that had become a prison. 6 weeks. It had been 6 weeks since he'd destroyed the only thing that mattered. 6 weeks of pretending to smile at Vivian's side, 6 weeks of playing the devoted fiancé, 6 weeks of dying inside while the woman he loved thought he'd betrayed her. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus, his head of security. Still nothing. Whoever sent those threats covered their tracks perfectly. But V is not doing anything suspicious. No new communications. Vivian. Aaron's fingers tightened on his phone until he thought it might crack. It had started the day after he'd proposed to Tara. He'd come into his office riding high on happiness, ready to tell his board about his engagement, about how he'd found the woman he wanted to spend his life with. Instead, he'd found the photos spread across his desk like a nightmare made tangible. Tara, captured through a sniper scope. Tara leaving her apartment. Tara at the hospital. Tara laughing with friends. Each photo marked with crosshairs, each one a promise of violence. The note had been simple. End the engagement with Tara Johnson and announce your marriage to Vivian Ashford within 1 month, or the woman you love dies. We're watching her constantly, one word to anyone, police, security, Tara herself, and she's dead. Proof of your compliance will be your distance. Make her believe you never loved her. Make her leave on her own. If she's hurt, if she suspects, if you try to protect her anyway but this, we'll know. And she'll pay the price. Aaron had torn his office apart looking for cameras, bugs, anything. Marcus had swept the entire building. Nothing. Whoever was threatening Tara was a ghost, someone with resources and reach that terrified him. The worst part? He had no idea why. The note hadn't demanded money or business concessions. It simply demanded he marry Vivian and destroy Tara in the process. For 3 weeks, he'd tried everything. He'd hired private investigators, security firms, even reached out to contacts in law enforcement under the guise of other business. Nothing. Every lead went cold. Every attempt to trace the threats led nowhere. And meanwhile, the deadline ticked closer. In the end, Aaron had made the only choice he could live with. Barely. He'd pushed Tara away with both hands, had said things that made him hate himself, had watched her break and done nothing to stop it because her tears meant she was alive. Her pain meant she was safe. The night she'd left his penthouse, he'd destroyed half his furniture in rage and grief. Marcus had found him at dawn, still clutching the engagement ring Tara had left behind, still seeing the devastation in her eyes. There has to be another way, Marcus had said. If there is, I haven't found it. Aaron's voice had been hollow. And I'm out of time. The engagement to Vivian goes public tomorrow, or... He hadn't needed to finish, or Tara dies. Now, 6 weeks later, the wedding was 2 months away. Vivian played her part beautifully. She'd always been ambitious, always wanted the social status that came with being a Wellington bride. She didn't love him. He didn't love her. It was business, exactly as he'd told Tara. The cruelest truth of all, a knock on his office door pulled him from his spiraling thoughts. Vivian entered without waiting for permission. Perfectly coiffed as always, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Darling, we have the venue walkthrough in an hour. Her tone was pleasant but businesslike. They'd reached an understanding early on. She got the name and the lifestyle. He got nothing he wanted. Do try to look happy. The wedding planner is already concerned about your lack of enthusiasm. I'll be there. His voice was flat. Vivian studied him for a moment, something almost like sympathy flickering across her face. You're still thinking about her. It wasn't a question. Aaron didn't bother denying it. For what it's worth, Vivian continued, I am sorry. I don't know why Father insisted on this marriage so urgently, but I know you didn't want it. She paused at the door. If you want to back out, I won't stop you. Aaron's head snapped up. Your father insisted? Well, yes, quite forcefully actually, said it was essential for the merger, that it had to be you and me specifically, that the timeline was non-negotiable. She frowned. You didn't know? Something cold slithered down Aaron's spine. Gerald Ashford had pushed for this marriage? Had set the timeline? Aaron had assumed it was Vivian's ambition, but if her father was behind it. Vivian, did your father ever mention Tara? The woman you were engaged to? No, why would... She stopped, her eyes widening. Aaron, what are you thinking? He was thinking that Gerald Ashford was ruthless enough to threaten anyone who got in the way of his business goals. He was thinking that a marriage alliance with the Wellingtons would give Ashford unprecedented access to Aaron's financial empire. He was thinking that he'd been so focused on protecting Tara that he'd missed the most obvious answer. Gerald Ashford wanted control of Wellington Industries, and he'd found the perfect lever, threaten the woman Aaron loved. I need to make a call. Aaron was already reaching for his phone, dialing Marcus. And Vivian, you might want to have a conversation with your father. Aaron, if Father is behind something, go. His tone was sharp. Now, before you're implicated in whatever this is. The moment she left, Marcus answered. Boss? Gerald Ashford. I want to know everything. Business dealings, associates, communications over the past 3 months. Everything. You think he's behind the threats? I think he's the only one with motive and means. The merger gives him access to Wellington assets. Marriage to his daughter gives him influence over company decisions. And he knew about Tara. I introduced her at that charity gala his family sponsored. I'm on it, but boss, if you're right, we need to be careful. Ashford has serious connections. I don't care if he has connections to the president himself. Aaron's voice was steel. He threatened Tara. He made me hurt her. He's going to pay for that. After hanging up, Aaron pulled up his computer and did something he'd been avoiding for 6 weeks. He searched for Tara's name. Her social media had gone dark after their breakup. No posts, no updates. But a deep dive into public records showed she'd taken a leave of absence from the hospital. Her apartment lease had been terminated early. She'd vanished. Panic clawed at Aaron's chest. Had something happened? Had Ashford decided she was too much of a loose end? God, what if he'd pushed her away only for... His phone rang. Marcus. Found something. Ashford had a private investigator tailing Tara for weeks before Paris. Same PI has connections to some very nasty people, the kind who do wet work for the right price. Address now. Boss, we should handle this carefully. Address, Marcus. 10 minutes later, Aaron was in his car, Marcus and 2 other security personnel with him. If Gerald Ashford thought he could threaten Tara and get away with it, he was about to learn a very painful lesson. No one hurt the woman Aaron loved. No one. Even if she never forgave him, even if she hated him for the rest of her life, he would make sure she was safe. And then he'd make Gerald Ashford regret ever hearing the name Tara Johnson. The drive to Ashford's estate felt endless and too short all at once. Aaron's hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles were white, rage and fear warring in his chest. If anything had happened to Tara, if Ashford had hurt her because Aaron hadn't moved fast enough. "Boss, you need to stay calm," Marcus said from the passenger seat. "We can't go in there making accusations without proof." "I don't need proof. I need answers." They were stopped at the gate by security, but Aaron's name still carried weight. Even Ashford's guards knew better than to deny a Wellington entry. The estate was massive, old money combined with new excess, the kind of place that screamed power and privilege. Gerald Ashford met them in his study, a portly man in his 60s with cold eyes and a smile that never reached them. "Aaron, what a surprise! If this is about the wedding plans, I'm sure Vivian—" "Where is she?" Aaron's voice was dangerously quiet. "I'm sorry, Tara Johnson." "Where is she?" Ashford's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Understanding calculation. I have no idea what you're talking about." Aaron crossed the room in 3 strides, getting in Ashford's face. "You threatened her. You sent those photos, made those demands. You forced me to break her heart so you could control me through your daughter. So I'll ask one more time. Where is Tara?" "I suggest you step back, Mr. Wellington." Ashford's tone remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. "You're making wild accusations based on what exactly? Paranoia? Guilt? Based on the fact that you're the only one who benefits from this entire situation." Aaron pulled out his phone, showed Ashford the photos Marcus had uncovered, financial records, communication logs, proof of the PI who'd been following Tara, based on evidence that ties directly back to you. For the first time, Ashford's composure cracked. His eyes narrowed, jaw tightening. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. Then explain it to me. Now." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Ashford moved to his desk, poured himself a scotch with steady hands. "You were never supposed to know. The marriage was meant to be, mutually beneficial. Vivian gets status. I get nothing I want," Aaron snarled. "You took everything from me." "I took nothing. I simply guided events toward an optimal outcome." Ashford sipped his drink. "Your precious Tara was a liability. Too much heart, not enough sense. She would have made you weak, made you vulnerable. The threats were never meant to be carried out, just motivation for you to make the right choice." The admission hung in the air. Aaron felt his vision blur red. "You destroyed her for business?" "I did what was necessary to secure my family's future." Wellington Industries combined with Ashford Financial creates an empire, Aaron. Surely you can see. Aaron grabbed Ashford by his expensive tie, slamming him against the wall. "I see a man who's about to lose everything. The wedding is off. The merger is dead. And if you ever come near Tara again, I will destroy you so completely that your family name will be synonymous with ruin. Do you understand me?" "You can't prove anything," Ashford wheezed. "Those records are circumstantial. And if you make a scene, if you embarrass my daughter, your daughter deserves better than to be used as a pawn in your schemes. I'll make sure she knows exactly what kind of man her father is." Aaron released him with disgust. "Marcus, call our lawyers. I want Ashford Financial investigated for conspiracy, harassment, stalking, everything. And call the police. I'm pressing charges." "This will ruin you," Ashford spat, straightening his tie. "The scandal, the broken engagement. Your board will have your head. Let them try." Aaron was already heading for the door. "The only thing I care about is making sure Tara is safe. And then I'm going to find her and spend the rest of my life begging her forgiveness." "She'll never forgive you," Ashford called after him. "You destroyed her trust. She thinks you never loved her. You'll never get her back." Aaron paused in the doorway, his voice quiet but fierce. "Maybe not. Probably not. But at least she'll know the truth. At least she'll know that every word I said to her in Paris was real, that breaking her heart broke mine, that I would have done anything to keep her safe." He left Ashford standing in his study, the man's threats and bluster fading behind him. Marcus was already on the phone with their legal team. The other security personnel were documenting everything, gathering evidence. But Aaron barely noticed, because now came the hardest part. Finding Tara, and somehow convincing her that the cruelest thing he'd ever done was an act of love. 3 days later, Tara stood in her new apartment, a modest 1-bedroom in Portland, Oregon, as far from New York and Chicago as she could manage, and tried to convince herself she was fine. She'd thrown herself into the move, into starting over. New city, new hospital, new life. She was 3 months pregnant now, her secret growing more impossible to hide. Soon she'd have to tell her family, her friends, everyone. But she couldn't, not yet. Because telling them meant explaining Aaron, and she still couldn't talk about him without feeling like she was being torn apart. Her phone rang, her mother, for the 3rd time that day. Tara let it go to voicemail, listening to the worried message about how she'd disappeared, how no one had heard from her in weeks, how they were all so concerned. "Baby, whatever happened with that man, we love you. Please call us back. Please let us help." Tara wiped away tears that seemed perpetual these days. She wanted to call, wanted to pour out the whole story to her mother's sympathetic ear. But the shame of it, of being so wrong about someone, of loving so deeply and being discarded so easily, kept her silent. A knock on her door startled her. She wasn't expecting anyone. No one even knew she was here. Cautiously, she checked the peephole and felt her heart stop. Aaron. He looked terrible, haggard and unshaven, his eyes bloodshot, his usual perfectly pressed appearance replaced with wrinkled, clothes that suggested he'd been wearing them for days. But he was here, standing outside her apartment. When she'd made sure to tell no one where she'd gone, "Tara, please." His voice was muffled by the door but desperate. "I know you don't want to see me. I know you probably hate me, but I need 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to explain." "There's nothing to explain," she called back, hating how her voice shook. "You made your choice. Now leave me alone." "I can't, because everything I said to you that night was a lie." Tara pressed her palm against the door, her breath catching. "What? The engagement to Vivian, telling you that you were just fun, all of it. Lies. Tara, someone threatened to kill you if I didn't push you away. They had photos of you through a sniper scope. They said if I tried to protect you any way but making you leave, they'd know. They'd hurt you." She wanted to believe it was another lie, another manipulation. But the raw pain in his voice, the desperate sincerity, it was the Aaron she'd fallen in love with in St. Lucia, the real one, not the cold stranger in his penthouse. With shaking hands, she opened the door. Aaron looked like he'd been to hell and crawled back. His eyes locked on hers with such intensity that she had to grip the doorframe to stay standing. "How did you find me?" she whispered. "Hired every investigator I could find. Spent the last 3 days searching. I had to know you were safe. Had to know that ending things had actually protected you." He took a shaky breath. "It was Gerald Ashford, Vivian's father. He wanted control of my company, and he knew the only way to force my hand was to threaten you. I have proof now, evidence. He's being charged with conspiracy and harassment. The engagement is off. The merger is dead." Tara felt dizzy, her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach. "You're telling me that everything, the breakup, Vivian, all of it was to protect me?" "Yes," Aaron's voice broke. "I know it doesn't excuse the pain I caused. I know I should have found another way, should have trusted you with the truth. But Tara, the thought of anything happening to you, the thought of you being hurt because of me, I couldn't risk it. I couldn't." She studied his face, looking for the lie, for the crack in the facade. But all she saw was devastation, love, desperate hope. "You broke my heart," she said, tears spilling over. "You made me think everything we had was fake." "I know! God, Tara, I know!" He reached out but stopped himself, his hand falling back to his side. "I broke my own heart too. These past 6 weeks have been torture. Not being able to call you, to see you, to tell you that every moment in Paris was real, that I meant every word of my proposal. Why should I believe you now?" But even as she asked, she knew. She could feel the truth of it resonating in her bones, in the part of her that had never truly accepted that Aaron could be so cruel. "Because I love you," Aaron said, his voice raw with emotion. "Because I never stopped loving you, not for a single second. Because every night for the past 6 weeks, I've held your engagement ring and wished I could turn back time, find a better way, protect you without destroying us." He pulled the emerald ring from his pocket, the one she'd left on his coffee table. "I've carried this with me every day, a reminder of what I lost, what I threw away to keep you breathing." Tara's breath hitched at the sight of the ring, memories flooding back. Paris, his proposal, the absolute certainty she'd felt that they were meant to be together forever. "I have so much to tell you," she whispered, her hand still pressed to her stomach. "Things that changed the night you pushed me away. Things you need to know." Aaron's eyes followed her movement, widening as understanding dawned. Tara, are you? 3 months, she confirmed, tears streaming freely now. I came to tell you that night. I was going to surprise you with the news that we were going to be parents, and instead, you told me I meant nothing. Aaron's face crumpled. He dropped to his knees right there in her doorway, a broken sound escaping his throat. Oh, God. Tara, I'm so sorry. You've been dealing with this alone, because of me. Because I was too afraid, too cowardly to find another way. You weren't cowardly, she found herself saying, kneeling down beside him. You were terrified, for me. She touched his face, felt the wetness of his tears. Aaron, what you did was wrong. You should have trusted me, should have told me the truth. But I understand why you didn't, when someone threatens the person you love. I should have been smarter, should have figured out it was Ashford sooner. He covered her hand with his. Can you ever forgive me? I don't expect you to take me back. I don't expect anything, but please, let me be there for you. For our baby, let me support you, protect you the right way this time. Tara looked into those blue eyes that had captivated her on a beach in St. Lucia, eyes that had promised her forever. She saw the truth there, the love, the regret, the desperate hope. I spent 6 weeks hating you, she said quietly. 6 weeks trying to convince myself that what we had wasn't real, that I'd been a fool to fall so fast, so hard. But I couldn't make myself believe it, because I know you, Aaron Wellington. I know the man who cooked breakfast at dawn and held me through nightmares. I know the man who learned about my work just so we'd have more to talk about. I know the man who proposed to me with tears in his eyes. Tara, that man wouldn't have betrayed me without a reason. That man would have moved heaven and earth to keep me safe. She took a shuddering breath. So yes, I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I understand why you did it. And because life is too short, and love is too rare, to waste on pride when the truth is standing right in front of me. Aaron pulled her into his arms so fast and so tight that she gasped. He buried his face in her neck, his whole body shaking with sobs he'd clearly been holding back for weeks. I love you, he choked out. I love you so much. I promise I'll never lie to you again, never push you away. I'll spend every day proving that I deserve your trust. You'd better, she said through her own tears, holding him just as tightly. Because this baby is going to need their father, and her voice broke. I need you too. Even after everything, I never stopped needing you. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other on her apartment floor, 2 broken hearts beginning to heal. Finally, Aaron pulled back enough to look at her, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. Marry me, he whispered, again. For real this time, with no threats, no secrets, no fear. Marry me and let me spend the rest of my life making you happy. Tara laughed through her tears. You're proposing to me while we're both crying on my floor? I proposed the first time on top of the Eiffel Tower and it didn't work out so well. A ghost of his old smile touched his lips. Maybe a Portland apartment floor will be luckier. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Yes, she said against his mouth. Yes, I'll marry you, but Aaron? Anything. Next time someone threatens me, you tell me immediately. We face it together. No more protecting me by breaking my heart. Together, he agreed. Always together, I promise. He slipped the emerald ring back onto her finger where it belonged, and Tara felt something settle in her chest, the missing piece, clicking back into place. There's a really good ultrasound clinic here, she said, lacing her fingers through his. Would you like to see your baby? Aaron's answer was another kiss. This one deeper, full of joy and relief and a love that had survived the worst either of them could imagine. 6 months later, Tara shifted in the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, cradling their newborn daughter against her chest. Aaron sat beside her, his arm around both his girls, looking at them like they'd hung the moon and stars. She has your eyes, Tara murmured, tracing their daughter's tiny features, those impossible blue eyes. And your strength, Aaron said softly. Look at those hands, already grabbing onto life. They'd named her Hope, because after everything they'd been through, after the pain and the lies and the fear, hope was what had brought them back together. The wedding had been small and private, just family and close friends, on a beach in St. Lucia, where their story had begun. Tara had been 6 months pregnant and absolutely glowing in a simple white dress, and Aaron had cried through his entire vows. "I promise to trust you with my fears," he'd said, voice thick with emotion. "I promise to face every challenge by your side, not by pushing you away. I promise to love you through the storms and the sunshine, through the easy days and the impossible ones. You are my heart, Tara Johnson, and I will spend every moment of my life proving worthy of yours." Tara had promised to forgive but never forget, to love fiercely but demand honesty, to build a life with him based on partnership and trust. Now, watching him gaze at their daughter with such overwhelming love, Tara knew they'd made it through the worst. Gerald Ashford was facing criminal charges. Vivian had actually become a friend, helping to testify against her father and starting her own company free from his influence. Aaron had restructured Wellington Industries to be more transparent, more ethical, more focused on people than just profits. "What are you thinking?" Aaron asked, noticing her smile. "That you were worth the heartbreak," she said honestly. "That we were worth fighting for." Aaron kissed her forehead, then their daughters. "I'm the luckiest man alive. I get to spend forever with my 2 favorite people." 3, Tara corrected, placing his hand on her stomach where their second child was already growing, a surprise they'd discovered just weeks ago. "Hope's going to be a big sister." Aaron's eyes widened, then filled with joyful tears. "Really? Really? Think you can handle 2 babies, Billionaire? With you by my side?" He kissed her deeply, tenderly. "I can handle anything." And as Hope made a tiny sound of protest at being squished between her kissing parents, both Tara and Aaron laughed, the sound of healing, of joy, of a love that had been tested and proven unbreakable. The promise Aaron had broken hadn't been the end of their story. It had been the beginning of their forever,